We're commonly asked why donuts, and for my partner Amanda and I, my now wife Amanda and I, back in 2014, we were looking to do something on our own. We worked in corporate America at the time. I was in insurance, she was in luxury retail management, and we were looking to find a way to work together. That's kind of, I guess, not the usual. Most married couples or most couples at the time or general just don't want to work together, but it was something that we were looking to spend time, more time together, and we were trying to find a way to do that and accomplish that. And we looked at a number of pizzerias and restaurants, and we thought that that was kind of the direction we were going to go. We had a lot of friends and family that have been in that industry and kind of saw their success. We knew that there was some opportunity there, but when we really started to break it down, we realized that we do like to travel and we like flexibility in our life, and we didn't want to be tied to a brick and mortar location. And that's where we really started putting the focus on how do we find something that's flexible. And that brought us to finding used donut equipment online, actually on Craigslist back in 2014. And for us, it was a bit of a kind of figuring out the basics. We did some basic math on a whiteboard in our first 2-bedroom apartment together. And we broke it down of what the cost would be per day, what rent looked like, and what everything looked like. And back at that time, that was Cinnamony Donuts. Cinnamony Donuts wasn't mobile. We were headed towards the kiosk direction at a local outlet center and in a local outdoor shopping mall. And we put the numbers together. We were still on the fence of what should we do? Should we move forward with this? And eventually we finally pulled the trigger. We had a couple of life changes, one specifically with Amanda, and we decided to jump in 2 feet first. And Amanda really took on operations and ran with it. And that's really the basis of Cinnamony Donuts and where we got started.
It sounds almost like it wasn't necessary the donut like that was the driving force. I need to make donuts. It was a case of I want a lifestyle change. I don't want this corporate America lifestyle. I want freedom of time. I want to spend that time with my wife. We want to build something together. And after doing some due diligence, that's where it ended up in terms of what the product was going to be, because you had a family background in that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't so much about initially. It was important to have a product that was unique, and for us it was always about the show. It was about always having a top quality product, second to none product, premium product, premium service. And for us, the service is the experience of watching the donuts being made. And that's what we've always done since day one. Back Memorial Day, we were actually just about to hit our 10-year anniversary, Memorial Day 2014. It was always about the customer, the guest, being able to watch the show of the donuts flipping and seeing that firsthand. And then on the back end, for us, it was the flexibility that type of business model offered and allowed us so that we could kind of set our own schedule and decide when we worked or when we didn't.
When I started my career by 20s working on Wall Street, putting transactions together in an analog world on the phones, and then at the end of the 90s, everything started to automate. The internet appeared. I started to invest money in technology companies, and eventually I left that business. And I started a business with a group of investors building an electronic trading system to be able to replace and compete with the people that I used to do transactions with on the phone. So we built a system that would replicate all the functionality so that the banks we would deal with could transact on a system that they ultimately built for themselves because they finance it with each other and not have to go through for the voice broker. So I became like arch enemy number one of all my old employees and colleagues. And then after that, I got involved in a series of businesses over the next 20 years, and they were all related to getting into an industry that was somewhat fragmented and providing technology solutions and things to differentiate, etc. And, I went through several renditions of that. And I got involved with the branding and merchandising industry through a friend of mine who I hadn't connected with for a while. We got back together in 2009, and he'd come and work for me as my CFO in a derivatives company that I was running. And when it ended, I had to move back to Florida. I was divorced, my children were there. And he decided he wanted to get back into that industry. And I said, I will financially support it. We'll be 50-50 partners. You can be the specialist. I'll put the money up. But we have to have a strong focus on targeting companies that have multi-location, that have difficult procurement systems where we can build technology solutions for them, and those solutions will add a value that doesn't exist today, because it's a very fragmented market. There are 50,000 companies out there that sell swag of some kind, or premium items or logoed items. And then there are probably half of those, 25,000 of them, that are big enough or sophisticated enough where they're dealing with customers that really at this stage require some form of e-commerce solution to support whatever they're doing for them. And there isn't a lot of technology within the industry, within the space that's available. So you've got this fragmented industry, there's not a lot of technology available. So we just thought there's a real opportunity here to come in and differentiate. And the guy who was running the company, who was my partner back then, a 50-50 partner, I've since bought him out. He managed to hook Metro PCS, which at the time had 1,000 locations, got bought by T-Mobile, went to 12,000 locations. So he found that 8,000 pound gorilla.
Wow.
And we went through hyper growth of building technology solutions to manage this huge growth, all regionally with different permissioning, etc. And at some point it turned more into a technology company, so I bought him out and in fact put someone who I'd worked with for years in as the CTO. And COVID happened and we went through some restructuring, etc. But I've ultimately always got involved in businesses where I feel I can add value by adding technology solutions.
So as we were getting started with Cinnamony Donuts and then eventually grew into DonutNV, our passion always came from watching our customers melt within, from watching them experience the product that we had just made for them. So watching that experience from start to finish of a great customer interaction through our suite sales process. That's what we've called our sales process, and that's how we teach our now franchisees how to work through a customer interaction. And it all starts with smiling and wowing and engaging with your customer. And then that leads to the customer, the guest, watching the donuts actually being made, of course, finishing up with them enjoying their donuts. So that was always a big driver for us, was how do we make a guest experience that is second to none. We know there's other donut companies out there. We know there's other food trucks out there, but how do we make something that no one else is doing and that it's going to be so memorable that we're going to be able to duplicate this nationwide? And really for us, as we continue to grow within the business, it then, in addition to the customer experience, it became how do we help others to achieve what we've achieved personally in our business and grow what is now DonutNV to the scale that it is, covering almost 30 plus states with 130 plus franchisees. So being able to support those franchisees in their business endeavor, many of which are either first-time business owners, or maybe this might be an add to their portfolio, watching them succeed with our concept while we're supporting and assisting on the back end is probably one of the best feelings you'd have in business is watching that success, especially as those franchise partners continue to grow in their business and add additional trailers and get into new locations. And my favorite thing is getting a call from a franchise partner and hearing we just got into this major stadium or this major account that we've been working on for so long, and it's fulfilling on a level that we never imagined when we were just making donuts at a kiosk or even in our first couple of food trucks or trailers. It's evolved into a whole nother world of support and success.
I mean, I look at that and I just think of franchises like yours that have gone from 2 to 130 in a couple of years. It's massive validation for everything you're saying. Obviously, you're making dreams come true for people who are becoming entrepreneurs, starting their own business. They're successful. Your success rate with those entrepreneurs has been phenomenal in terms of how many of them have joined you and succeeded. Have any of them not? Because it seems like you've had a massive amount of growth over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I mean, with success, you're always going to have some people in general just aren't cut out to be business owners.
Yep.
It's just the unfortunate odds of kind of life, I guess, or the business world, if you will.
Yeah.
So definitely not everyone's cut out to be a business owner, and that's why we take our validation process and our onboarding process so seriously, leading up to the point of extending an invite to a candidate to come to visit us in Orlando for Confirmation Day. And Confirmation Day is the point at which, during the process, you are basically vet it through if you're working with a consultant, working with them, working with our sales team, then leading up to in person to meet our team, to taste the product if you haven't already tasted the product in person, and making sure that it's a mutual fit, not only for the franchise candidate with DonutNV, but mutually for DonutNV with the candidate as well. And we're very big on making sure that the candidates understand this is a 10-year marriage. We're going to be at least together for 10 plus years. We hope that you renew. We hope that you are a franchisee for life. But we want to make sure that you're at least in it for that first 10 years, and that's really important. And
but like any marriage, things can go wrong.
Sure.
Once in a while. How you feel with your customers at the end of the day when they taste your product, when they start a business, when they create a business, when they create financial freedom, like you literally are a dream maker for people who come to you when you start them off with a business and train them. I feel much the same way with the technology, in the sense that we create technology solutions for our clients. We support our clients. Our clients, generally speaking, become partners of ours. It usually starts off with we're entering in the marketing arena and we're providing goods to help strengthen the brand, solidify the brand, centralize the buying, and helping organizations like yourself as they grow have efficiency so they don't have to think about those things. They can focus on what they do best, which is just growing the franchise. But, we've had some really good successes recently with stories where we've partnered with organizations like yourself, and it's grown beyond just that to a full procurement logistics of looking after the client in many, many aspects of their business. And that's what I love about it. I love about the fact that we're tied into multiple businesses like yours. We benefit from helping you grow. We have a really strong group of support staff, account executives that work with you, and they wake up breathing and thinking about how can I make your business better? Because if your business is better, then they've succeeded. And our growth over the last 2.5 years since we launched our new technology platform, we've been able to onboard some 50, 60 large corporations. We've recently been introduced to the franchise fast lane group through a great recommendation from yourself, actually. And that's opened up some amazing doors for us to be involved with organizations that are not just literally creating dreams for their customers. There's nothing nicer than a customer who's that happy. But at the same time, these organizations like yours are going through hyper growth, very, very fast growth. So it lends itself to technology solutions, streamlining of processes, etc., to allow that to happen. So I get the same excitement and fulfillment out of it in a slightly different way. But ultimately, seeing the customer, like seeing you be able to grow, etc., we feel like we've added something there to allow that streamlining to take place.
So when we take a look at the history and the evolution of the system, again, coming up on almost 10-year anniversary in the next month, we take a look back to when we were operating ourselves, and we were working originally it was out of a storage facility, a very small 5x5 storage unit, storing extra product, and then it evolved into now we're selling franchises. How are we going to get this product to a franchisee? And initially with the first couple of franchisees, we were selling donut mix literally out of a storage unit and meeting franchisees to give them their donut mix. And as we started to gain some momentum and then figure out, okay, what does our roadmap look like? How are we going to strategically grow this over the coming years? And what do we want this to look like? We had to make a conscious decision of what things we were going to focus on, where we're going to put our attention, because there's only so much time in the day, and what were the key items that were very important, but could be outsourced, if you will, to an extent, but more so offloaded to a partner in some regard. And we made that conscious decision from a development and sales standpoint. And we wanted to be able to focus on franchisee success. That was really important to us. So we made the conscious decision of let's outsource sales efforts so that we're not focusing on that. And I had sold our first 14 units. And so I knew what went into that sales process and how much time and effort went into that. And by offloading that portion, we were able to focus, again, back on the support and back on being a visionary for the brand to drive it forward. And when the opportunity came along to offload through the Brandit partnership, the product fulfillment and things as simple as shirts or hats, things that are very important to the brand from a brand consistency and standard perspective. But in terms of a profit center, just the time that would be allocated to those products could be used in a much better, much higher, use of our time. And that's really where the partnership started to develop once we were able to kind of see that path and realize that we were limited in how much time we had in the day, just like anyone. And, by partnering on the distribution channels and doing what started as just t-shirts and hats and a couple items then grew into other avenues for donut mix distribution and now much more. So that's it allows us to focus on the system as a whole.
Yeah, and that's ultimately to describing the evolution of the portal that we designed ourselves, which was originally for branded material, uniforms, things that would adhere and keep the brand integrity, etc. So when organizations like yourself are crossing borders, they weren't having the franchisees here or in this state just buying their local stuff locally and it not quite matching or the logo's not matching, etc. But it hasn't really mattered whether the organization is a new organization just kicking off. And did you say you took it to 14 locations yourself before you outsourced it?
We did, yeah, 14.
So you were literally going out and finding franchisees at events and at various different things?
Yeah, I mean, we were at events. We had people coming up to us and saying, how do I get one of these? Because they would see the line.
Yeah.
They were excited to potentially join the system. And, we were working those leads plus doing some relatively basic SEO and
I'm guessing hyperbolically, when you brought on a professional organization to find them for you, that expanded, and then with that expanse came, okay, how do we manage this? And I think we came across each other sometime around that time or just before there. It was really good timing for us.
Perfect timing.
That's what we love to do. And you were just taking off in that growth where we felt like, okay, we can build some tools here to help you.
When we look back to where DonutNV was pre-Brandit, we go back to the storage unit days of literally handing franchisees donut mix out of a storage unit. And we knew there was a better way to do it. And at the time when we were doing sales and development ourselves, we were, Amanda and I were visiting trade shows. We were setting up and being a vendor at trade shows, looking for franchise leads.
You were wearing 12 hats.
Yeah, of course. You have to do it all. That's how, small business is.
Yep.
And we were setting up at franchise shows. We just happened to be at a show in Charlotte, and it was probably one of the worst attended shows we had done. It was post-COVID, just the attendance wasn't good. But I remember someone from Brandit had come up to me with a postcard and said, hey, if you ever need apparel or need help with your fulfillment of product, give us a call. And it started a conversation. I think we talked a little bit at the show, and then there was some follow-up after that. And it was more so, yes, we can use assistance with apparel and the basics. I mean, we can do that pretty much anywhere. Anyone can sell you a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I also have these other needs too. I need to get, donut mix to franchisees, and, I don't have capacity to stock a storage unit and handle that. Is that something that you can take on? And the answer was yes. We can definitely take a look at it. And I think you hear that a lot in the industry is, we can take a look at it, but then do you actually take it a step further and make it a reality? And that was the first big step in the partnership was, we can take that on. And over time that grew and evolved to, we can stock the warehouse with multiple pallets and we can have it on hand, and we have multiple options for volume pricing. And, it's grown into a great ecosystem that's not only good for DonutNV, but also good for the franchise system of DonutNV as well, too.
Yeah, for better or worse, I think we've lived by the philosophy of we don't really say no to our customers, and we end up going sometimes down these rabbit holes. But that's part of our goal is to provide efficiencies, ultimately help growth for organizations like yours. And even when we work with larger organizations, we work with marketing departments of organizations that have 12,000 locations, it's still our philosophy that we're partners of those organizations. And if there are things we can do outside of our wheelhouse, we do them. I mean, we ultimately do. We really think of you and our customers as true partners. Your success is our success.
Absolutely.
That's ultimately the case. We're always looking to get involved with companies that have the potential for big growth as well. Like nothing better than having a client that's going through this growth phase, etc. I find it a lot less interesting when you, as a company yourself or with the client you're dealing with, is so saturated that now the only way to grow is to cut costs. So it was a really exciting proposition. You're a growing business. He explained at the time, I think you were in the process of buying the truck manufacturer that was building trucks for you because they couldn't keep up with where you wanted to go, etc. So it was a very compelling story. And we sit down as an organization, and if it's not something within our wheelhouse, we sit down with a couple of internal analysts, we analyze what that would look like, and it made sense to, okay, let's bring somebody in that we can get involved with like on a long-term basis. If you've gone through this period of growth and there's this hyper growth in front of you, we want to be with you to go to 150 to 300 to 1,000. We want to be a part of that story with you. And for me, it was a pretty easy commitment. It really didn't change a lot of what we did right out the gates. Since then, we've got involved in bringing on other things internally that when you had some pain points, I guess, with some of the manufacturers, some of the products. And again, we consider that our role, that when those things pop up, to solve them, make them go away, and then give you some really good reporting on the back end so you have visibility into all this going on, but you don't have to think about it on a daily basis. You know, when something goes wrong, you're aware of it. It allows us through the reporting to almost police the brand for you, where you can see if certain regions or certain areas are not buying your products. If they're not, where are they buying them from? If it's a mix you're not buying, then they're definitely diluting your brand because they're using someone else's donut mix. They're going to lose the touch and feel. And the strength of a brand is all about every time you interact with it, you get the same service, the same taste, the same look, the same feel. So yeah, I think it was a pretty easy decision from our perspective. I think of us as serial entrepreneurs, and we have our core business that we go down this path, and we're lucky because it exposes us to a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself, people who are doing special things. And if we can get involved in your business with you, etc., in any way, we've come very close, and we're still debating wanting to take on some of your trucks ourselves and take on a territory because the business is so attractive.
Yeah.
And that would like really embed us with you. So no, we definitely try and go as deep into like being partners as possible. That's still not off the table, I hope.
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think the most surprising part was, you know, someone comes up to you at a trade show and hands you a card that has T-shirts and hats on it, and that's kind of the norm. You're used to getting that, and
Yep.
They always go in the trash. But then the fact that we were actually able to take that conversation to these are our needs, and surprisingly make them come to fruition relatively quickly, we were able to see that there was a very bright light at the end of this short tunnel, and we wanted to really continue pushing that forward to see what else was on the table. And for us, that led from shirts and hats and donut mix to much more over time. You know, what then led into the custom crumb factory now, what's led into taking load off of the marketing department and our operations department for things like our seasonal rollout. So we're big on specialties and one-off flavors. We do a campaign every month that changes the flavor of the month. Every month there's a new topping. Mm-hmm. And with that comes, of course, planning and execution, and then, you know, getting that product in the hands not only of the franchisee initially, but then having back stock and having inventory to then supply those reorders as well too. So it's, you know, the relationship has grown to that point where, you know, we can have a trusted partner knowing that not only are we doing the things we need to do today and tomorrow, but we also have the product in stock for when we need it down the road, and we're not in a bind. And if we ever are, for any reason, which things happen with supply chain,
Yeah.
being able to have a partner to lean on to figure out, okay, what's the best solution to this issue?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it goes back to the partnership thing. Like, we absolutely feel like we're an extended arm of your organization. It's not just Brooke and he has a team of people around him that are responsible for looking out into the future, trying to make prediction for things. That you're busy like onboarding, trying to catch things coming down the pipeline so you have time to be able to take advantage of opportunities. I think that's worked out really well for us in terms of being able to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for better or worse, Brandit doesn't say no to your own fault. And I think definitely catch the team off guard with some requests and some last minute asks. And a lot of it comes from more so on the franchise side. You know, there's definitely things that we might need help with last minute on the franchisor side of things, but you know, our franchisee success is paramount to you know, to us and to the system as a whole. And if our franchisees aren't successful, then, you know, the system isn't successful. That's a key piece of the foundation of the system.
Yep.
And I think just recently in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there was a situation where someone forgot to order donut mix. They had a big event pop up last minute, and the team facilitated a courier to get donut mix across the state of Florida to that franchisee. And at the same time, I was actually in transit. I was traveling, visiting franchisees, and another situation popped up very similar to actually a neighboring franchisee in that area. And I was hopping on a plane. I didn't have time to get involved with it. The franchisee had reached out directly to me, so ops wasn't aware of it. No one else on the internal team was aware of it. And my first call was to the Brandit team to say, please get in touch with this franchisee. This is what's going on. And because of our continued open communication, they were able to facilitate getting donut mix not only to the initial franchisee that called, but then facilitating kind of a product share between those two franchisees until more product could get out to them. So, even though it was something that could have been planned for ahead of time, we don't ever take the approach of, well, it's your fault and you're stuck and, you're out of luck. It's how not only are we partners, of course, with Brandit, but how are our franchise partners treated, and what can we do to make sure that they're continuously successful?
Obviously, the success of any of the franchisees, and we speak directly with the franchisees as well as with you and with your management team, and try and support them in any way we can. And that's those situations, not just with you, but have come up quite a lot. And that's, again, part of, we're ultimately a logistics business, and logistics is all about details, and that you're going to have human error, you're going to have things slip through the pipeline, people don't order or things don't happen. If it's physically possible, we'll definitely make it happen. We try not to overpromise and then not make it, because it's really important. A lot of our stuff is event-driven if the donut mix hadn't ended up there. But if we can physically find someone that can make it there within the time allocated, we'll always try and get it done, for sure.
Yeah, it's much appreciated.
Yeah. So there's been a few milestones, obviously, from when we first got involved with it, where we had an unusual-ish relationship where we got involved for the first time in actually overseeing the inventory and managing donut mix. It was the first time we'd ever had a food product type thing.
I remember the initial conversation was, how are we going to put food mix or food in this warehouse?
Exactly.
So we've never done it before.
Then we ended up getting licenses to be able to manufacture and oversee the food part of the business that you were having issues with your present supplier, etc. And then we made a decision at some point, and relationship had grown like this, to bring in everything in-house and take off all of that off of your plate. For me, it was really seeing the accelerated growth, the number of franchises from when we got involved with 2 to 4 to 130 now, which is 2 years later or less. And we were responsible for, every time you onboarded and got another franchise out, there was 8 a month going out, and consistently 8 a month, which was superb. And I started to see articles of, rated the top 22nd fastest growing franchise in the US, etc. And then you just did something that was beyond the call of duty in terms of helping us as a company and sharing what we'd done with you, with your other colleagues and the people that you had already outsourced some of your business to. So it felt like you'd outsourced the finding of franchisees to Franchise Fastlane, to actually find a vetted, qualified people to actually operate your franchises. You'd outsourced a lot of the logistics of managing the operational stuff associated with getting products to the franchise and making sure they're fully cleared out to us. And then you wrote a really, really, really complimentary email to Kerry Gill, who was the CEO of Franchise Fastlane, telling her what a great job we had done for you. And it didn't go unnoticed. She reached out to me straight away, and it was a beginning of what seems to be a really good relationship that we're developing with them. And at the time, I really did not know how premier they were within the franchise world. We've become so embedded in the franchise world right now, and our software was always built for that type of business, and we've got involved in multi-location companies, and some of them have been big with thousands and thousands of locations. Some of them have been private equity roll-ups where they're rolling up lots of different healthcare institutions, but they all have different branding, so it's a different process. But the franchise world itself, and the franchise world at your stage of the franchise world, where there are companies that have been discovered by an organization that, like Franchise Fastlane, that does a lot of vetting and looks at 200 organizations a year and picks 8-ish of them to get involved and get endorsed by them off the back of a really great recommendation. Gave a lot of pride on our side about, when you talk about the feeling you get when a customer is successful, etc., and the pleasure you get from it. It was the same thing, realizing what we'd done to get such an amazing recommendation, which everybody in the organization was very proud of. We'll have that framed and up on the wall at some point, and we've quoted it in many presentations since.
That's great.
But yeah, those are the things that really make me feel special about the business, the relationship, why it's all worthwhile. And that was a changing point with, in terms of the relationship, where it was like, we felt like we had said, this is someone I think we can help with a lot of stuff, like beginning stage franchises we got involved with, like you said, 2 or 4 locations operating out of your garage, and thinking that's not sustainable to get to 10 or to get to 50 or to get to anything. So there was a lot we could do out of the gates to bring that in-house. Some of the bigger organizations that we deal with, they've already got some solution. It might be a bad solution, and when we get involved with them, they just dump all of this stuff in our warehouse. We have to go through everything and figure out what's what. But this was like the beginning of you building your business, and us getting almost like within your brain to understand what your goals are, what your ambitions were, and how we were going to be able to fit into that with our core business, and what peripheral things we could do to help to kind of help accelerate that growth. Because where you are now, it's all about accelerated and speed of growth, etc., and maintaining the brand. And whilst you do that, not getting diluted in any way. It only takes a few bad apples within your organization to hurt the brand. And so, yeah, I think you've done a really good job of building an infrastructure, etc. And it's been a pleasure being a part of it.
I appreciate it. I think the most successful business owners and entrepreneurs are those that understand that business is an ecosystem, and it's all about give and take. And, the same way that Brandit has gone out on a limb for us multiple times and believing in us, and then not only listening to the numbers of this is where we expect to go and this is the trajectory, and saying, okay, we're going to hop on board. There's another side of that too, of, give back, if you will. And, that was a bit of our way of kind of paying it forward, if you will, because I think the service and the offerings of what Brandit offers are very unique in the space, and they can benefit many other companies. You have your large companies that you've worked with, like your Metro PCSs, but to find a partner that can actually work with a growing brand and understand where that trajectory could go or where it might go, and if it doesn't go exactly where it's expected, that can also adjust with you along the process, is really, really important. And, I think it's really important to recognize that when you hear logistics and you talk about 3PL, just because there's a company that puts the word logistics or 3PL in their name doesn't mean they're actually good at it. And we've learned that the hard way, of trying through the Brandit partnership, of trying to bring others under the Brandit umbrella to help basically frame offsite locations and help with the distribution channels, and look at, do we add remote locations or additional locations, satellite locations in other states? But when those companies can't fulfill to the same level, to the same quality, even using the same box or the same packing technique that we know is proven, and donut mix shows up damaged, for example, that speaks to the care and really the pride that the brand takes in every product that goes out the door when you're watching other companies not do it so well. So, to be able to give that endorsement and to help other entrepreneurs that are looking to grow, kind of rewinding back to where we were 2-3 years ago, and then giving them a platform to work off of so that they can then grow their businesses and their systems, is, I think, really, it's all about, the ecosystem and giving back to the entrepreneurial community.
Yeah, no, I have to say the collaboration part of what we've done is not unique to us, but really exciting and enjoyable, working with the owner of a company versus a large corporation. You're working with the marketing department and someone who has a vision, and that vision can change depending on the organization's direction that they take. Like, they're big organizations, they're interesting accounts, but it's a very different relationship working with an owner of a business who's starting a business and has a vision. And every small business I've been involved in, this might be what your vision is, but you come across all these hurdles and roadblocks and walls that you have to navigate around and stuff, and being a part of that with you, and some of the challenges that you've had, being able to figure out recently, obviously, like, there's some challenges in that the cost of shipping for some franchisees based on where they were, etc., and the product itself, it was causing some issues in terms of their justification in actually buying certain products that were being shipped across, and just figuring out together, how can we solve it? Let's do some bulk sales so that the shipping gets cut out of it, etc. Sitting down together and collaborating and planning, etc. I see that happening on a regular basis. I know that Brooke and yourself meet quite frequently and stuff, and that's a big part of our business, is being a part of your grey matter and your thought in terms of how you want the business to grow, so we can get ahead of the curve and help you with that. And that's, I think, the big part of the attraction with Fastlane franchise. Again, I can't thank you enough for the introduction, because we've already had a few really interesting introductions, and it's into a segment of the franchise industry, because there are thousands of franchises, but into a segment, to me, that is the most exciting of all of the segments of the franchise industry. These companies that have been identified as having a really interesting product, or they've been picked by a company that has expertise in finding these companies, and they're poised for hyper growth. And that hyper growth is something that I think we can really help with, because when that happens, everybody has to focus on their specific piece of the puzzle and get on with it and do it properly, and be reliable and be expected to get it done and be accountable. And I think one of those are things that we're both very good at, and our lines of communication have been fantastic.
So when we take a look at where DonutNV is today and what the goal is in the next 3 to 5 years, we look at, we really always come back to, there's a ton of white space. We have over 500 or 600 plus open territories right now throughout the country that are available for sale, and one territory is equal to one trailer. So you're talking a lot of white space on the map, and that's only in the states that we sell in currently. There's a couple that we don't, and once we actually open those states up, you're talking 1,000 plus open territories. So long way to go. Very commonly I'm asked, how many franchisees do we have today? How many trailers are open? And we always get the wow, you're 125 plus open trailers, and it's exciting, because I remember when we had none, and I remember when we had one, and how hard it was to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to to then to just get to 14 and get to the professional representation stage through a franchise sales organization. So that's definitely not lost on me. The growth that we've had has been great. We want to continue that growth through the next number of years, 3, 5 plus years, and then eventually get it to a point where it could potentially become an international brand even as well too. So, we've seen we did a lot of market research throughout the East Coast, from New York all the way through Florida, leading into franchising, to make sure the system worked, to make sure the product was well recognized and well received with customers up and down the East Coast, and it was, which is why we pushed in that direction. And with that continued trajectory of we're going to keep growing, we're going to do so strategically, it comes a back end effort as well of being able to keep up and making sure that product is stocked or product is updated, or maybe there's a better way of doing something at the time. And just that constant flow of communication between our partners. And in the case of Brandit, Brandit's a big piece of that, for not only product distribution, for donut mix and toppings. The topping factory was one of the biggest initiatives that I think we worked together on. Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be more of those down the road as well too, that come up because of really purely a need and not being able to find it with other partners that being readily available. And usually, kind of going back a bit, the answer typically when you go to a partner is no, or we'll think about it, or we'll talk about it down the road, and it ends up being no eventually. Yeah. Whereas in this case, it usually starts with, we can make it happen, but let's just figure out how we're going to do it. So just listening to our front lines, which are our franchise partners, listening and asking, what do you need? That's something that we really pride ourselves on. And that's our focus in 2024, is understanding how can we be a better partner to our franchise partners? What can we do to help their systems individually, their local businesses, and then relaying that information through our channels to the appropriate vendors to figure out how those relationships are going to continue to grow.
Yep. At the rate of growth right now, you're talking 3 years out to 400 or 500 locations. That's impressive growth.
The goal. Yeah,
it's impressive growth, and you're doing it now, so there's no reason why you won't continue it. But like you said, as you go through growth, you hit different, and you scale your business, you go through different levels. If all of a sudden there's this level, there's another issue that we have to overcome to be able to get to the next level and the next level. I think we're in a good position to be really good partners with that going forward, because we have had experience prior to being involved with this group of franchises of your size. In our previous world, post-COVID, we dealt with a lot of large franchises and we still do deal with a lot of them, like Verizon, T-Mobile, companies that have thousands of locations and have completely other issues to deal with, etc. That are more bureaucratic, and hopefully you don't end up there. And some of them are international brands as well that we deal with. And so a lot of the stuff that comes into play for them, but not necessarily not necessarily things that are relevant to you at this stage. Hopefully, we can see them coming and get in front of them before they happen. Be a part of that growth the entire way. But there is no doubt that to go from 14 to 140 to 500 to 1,000, you're going to always have different challenges, whether they be financial, how you manage the group. Maybe you need to upgrade systems to be able to oversee everybody. Maybe it's going to require more national warehousing, production of products in different locations to cut down on shipping and stuff. But that's all stuff I think we're pretty well qualified to be able to grow with you, etc. That's one of the exciting bits about it, seeing you go through the phases, because I believe that's there's not too many things to derail you. I think you've got a pretty solid business, and there doesn't seem to be any shortage of people that want to buy the franchises.
We take a look at the relationship with any of our vendors, and specifically Brandit in this case. The biggest thing is being able to know that what we need or what we ask will be taken care of. And
if it can't be, I hope that we come forward and say very much up front, like, this is something that we'll work on and try, but it's good to tell someone when you can't do something as well.
And I think that's imperative, of not just saying yes. Being a yes man isn't always a good thing. And being honest and open of really what your capabilities are today, but maybe what they could be in the future is really important to know. But being able to adjust our focus from previously having to worry about, well, where's the donut mix and how are franchisees getting donut mix, to how are we going to better support and grow a coaching side of the business, and how are we going to offer business support to the franchise partners as opposed to worrying about where the donut mix is, has been a big part of the success, and will continue to be a big part of the success and the story as we continue to grow, because it's one less thing that we need to worry about. And right now it's a bunch of things that are in inventory, and that quantity, that inventory will only continue to grow too as we scale.
As you get bigger in the number of franchises, are you able to offer them more services like insurance and various different things that they can buy into, or are they all 1099 and separate businesses, and that's not possible?
So each franchise partner runs their own business. They're going to run their own business, but the great thing about being a part of a franchise system is you have access to a network of partners. And in our case, we make many of our partners preferred partners. We're really big on not requiring partners unless it's something that we feel very strongly about. Typically, something has to be very focused on protection of the franchise partner and their business in order for us to enforce something. So in the case of what we offer with Brandit, we of course enforce donut mix and toppings and cups and bags, the staple items that a guest is going to experience, during their experience with a DonutNV unit. And being very selective about the partners is important. For us, taking insurance in-house wouldn't make sense at this time. It's just
not in-house so much as providing group policies for them. But I guess if they are in every state, etc., that must make that quite a challenge.
Well, on the group insurance side, we do have a policy in place. It was kind of a pain point for franchisees where they were having issues getting a certain type of coverage, and it was something that we ended up finding another partner for that was in the insurance space. And actually, once we continued to grow to the 50 plus unit stage, we were then qualified, if you will, to be able to write a plan like that. So, having that offering and that option available for franchisees is great. It's a very reasonably priced product, but more so, it's about the protection and making sure they're protected should something happen. And that's how we choose partners, to make sure that they are the right fit and the franchisees have options with that. But our preferred partner network will only continue growing. We, just the same way we give referrals to our partners, we receive those and we vet those. We get quite a bit, of course, but we vet and look at great opportunities so that we can help our franchise partners continue to grow their businesses.
Do you get a fair number of referrals of potentially new franchisees from your existing franchisee at this stage, because you have quite
We do,
quite
yeah.
a stable of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you see a DonutNV truck in the wild and you have a long line, of course, naturally.
It's a billboard.
Yeah, it's a billboard for not only the brand, but for the success of that local franchisee. So we definitely see referrals come in organically from that, which is, the biggest, probably the biggest pat on the back we can get. We also, a big part of our process during the sales process is validation from current franchisees. And if you're going through the DonutNV franchising process and you're a candidate, you're considering becoming a franchisee, you're required to talk with current franchisees. We need you to understand what the system looks like. It's not about speed, and it's not about closing a deal. For us, it's making sure that it's the right fit and that it's a lasting relationship.
That they understand the full daily responsibilities. It's not all glamour. It's not all they understand what it takes to make that business run properly.
Yeah, definitely. There's great rewards you can reap from the business, but there is work that goes into it. Right, it is a business at the end of the day. We have a lot of fun doing what we do. I mean, my favorite part of the business is being able to attend events and be a part of some really big events. Things like the Daytona 500, for example, or big music festivals. I mean, that's a regular day.
Because your trucks are there.
Because the trucks are at those locations. I mean, that's the regular day in the life of a franchisee, is picking and choosing where they're going to attend. And maybe, events like those are once a year, but then you get to be a part of some really fun local events, community festivals, fairs. I always looked at the business as the events that we're going to attend as a DonutNV business are events that I was going to attend anyway with my family. Yep. So why not make some money and have some fun while we were there too? Mm-hmm. And that's what that's why we always enjoyed the business. And that's why I think we were able to grow so quickly ourselves on an operational side, was because we were having fun along the way. We were making money. And it was more than just the money for us.
But the franchisees are getting that same benefit. They're getting the same benefit. They're booking shows where they want to be, etc. As you become a bigger national brand, has it become easier for your franchisees to book those shows in the top venues? Obviously, when you were less known, etc., they are small community operations. In the community, they get their own reputation, etc., as well as you grow and you start seeing the trucks in different locations. But I would imagine it's self-fulfilling as you become a stronger and stronger brand. Being able to win access to events, etc., will also become self-fulfilling.
It is. It definitely self-fulfilling, and the credibility only increases as you have more trailers on the road. So the growth of the system is great, not only for new franchisees that are looking to jump on board and become business owners, but it's great for existing franchise partners as well too, because it's building additional equity not only in the brand but in their individual businesses. And I can't tell you how many times we've heard stories where there was a director for a major theme park or a major event venue, and they saw a DonutNV trailer, in their travels, maybe on vacation in another state, and they said, "This is really cool." They saw franchises available on the side of the trailer, and then inquired for more information, which then led to opportunities maybe nearby, wherever they were based out of at home, or even locally. And we've seen that many times where sports tournaments have national tournaments all across the country, and one franchisee may have an opportunity that opens the door for a dozen more franchisees across the country.
They truly are billboards.
They are billboards, and the reason why we're so specific about being franchise partners is because we want our internal franchise family to work together and to share those events and really champion each other's successes.
And how do you bring them together for annual events? Is that as you grow, is that something down the road, like to share stories for collaboration between franchisees? Is that done through chat systems? How do they come together?
Yeah, so we're working towards our first annual convention for 2025. We're really excited about
Congratulations.
that. Thank you. Yeah, we expect to conduct that sometime in early Q1. So that's in process right now. And, the connectivity of the franchisees is great. We accomplish that a number of different ways. We have an internal page where our franchisees are able to ask questions and connect with each other and really share best practices. We also conduct our own subject matter expert calls, which we hold quarterly, and that's where we bring in either a specific partner. So Brandit's actually been a part of those calls previously, talking about the services and the offering and making sure that everyone was up to speed on what is offered. We've had fellow franchisees even talk on those calls and share how they've become successful, how they've scaled their business, what their business looks like. In addition to SME calls, we also host town halls monthly. So that's going to be a monthly update for all of our franchise partners to understand what's new, what's happening within the system. There's everything from an ops update to marketing update, any new preferred partners that have joined the system. And of course, we welcome new franchisees at that time. And our latest initiative has been our Franchise Advisory Council. So we finally hit a point in the growth of the company where we wanted to have an FAC, and we had a overwhelming amount of interest from our franchise partners, which was extremely humbling. Probably one of the most humbling parts of this journey so far was how many people were interested and excited to be involved on this council and really being a beacon for fellow franchisees and being a voice for them.
So feedback and improvement. Yeah, we were part of it, and definitely there was stuff that came from it. I think we had some pretty quick results in terms of being able to turn around some pain points for people. So that stuff's invaluable, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if you don't have that communication, you don't get the feedback, it's impossible to fix those things that people are feeling out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't ask, they can't tell. That was always my dad was actually in market research, and that was always the tagline for his company was, if you don't ask, they can't tell. So, surveys have become a regular part of the DonutNV system on the back end, and then being able to share that feedback and decipher it not only initially internally, but then figure out, okay, how are we actually going to do more than just read it? How are we going to incorporate it into the operations? And
that's a similar expression when I worked on Wall Street when I was going in for my bonus meetings. It was, if I don't ask, they won't give.
I'm currently on a founders tour.
I noticed online.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We kind of took a look at a number of different initiatives and really took a look at the year of where we were in 22, 23, and where are we looking to go in 24 and 25. And we were getting great feedback online through our surveys, but then we wanted to hear it in person too. We wanted to hear, what other opportunities are there? What can, I always say, corporate do for you? Because coming from corporate America, we tried to build the most uncorporate type of system, but at the end of the day,
at the same time, with all the infrastructural support,
you need the structure, right? Yeah. So and the infrastructure. So being out in the field is really invaluable, and being able to talk to our partners, see them at events, and even if they're not events, being able to just catch up for coffee or lunch it's really cool. It's really rewarding, and being able to hear their stories of how they're succeeding, what's working well for them, what their areas of opportunities are, how we can better support, what they're asking for. And as you mentioned a little bit ago, shipping, was one of the bigger pain points that we were seeing.
When they were ordering in small amounts.
Yeah, it's small amounts. So then, we took a look at it. I think I talked to the team, specifically Brooklyn, every day for at least 30, if not 45 days, working on this specific project of how do we bring costs down. Cost of goods is paramount to not only the success of the brand, but also making sure that the franchisees are really paying the right price, and they're being, they're at the right, that everything makes sense, really. And, Brooke and I worked together on that project for over a month, and then based on those results, being able to then deliver that information not only on our town halls and virtually, but then also in person has been really key.
So they're getting real quick feedback. They understand that you feel and care about their pain points, and you've given them some solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think so far we've visited 5 states, so we have many more to go. Are
you planning on visiting each location or each state?
That's the goal. Yeah, we plan to visit all franchisees throughout 2024.
This is not going to be an annual thing, otherwise you're going to be on the road, or you're going to be always on the road.
I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. We didn't know what to expect at first, and we've been very welcomed very warmly everywhere we show up, and it's a lot of fun. There's many times where I'll hop in the trailer and I'm making donuts, and I think our franchise partners are surprised that I know how to make donuts, but I've been doing this for 10 years, so it comes second nature.
Next year, maybe
I love it.
Next year, maybe you should do the undercover boss. That show. But so one of the things you said earlier, I wanted to go back on, so people understand that when you have a great idea and and a vision like you have, and something that's been executed very, very well, it doesn't happen overnight with a great idea and all of a sudden you've got a donut shop. You clearly had multiple years of R&D and research before you went to market with your business.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that, because I don't think people realize the amount of behind the scenes work that goes into a launch of a business like that. People might say, if it's donuts, what's the science behind it? But to create a donut that's different to everywhere else, that's going to be franchisable, and the whole process and the machineries and stuff, there's a lot that goes behind it.
There's a lot that comes in the build process of that system. And for Amanda and I, it started as, how are we going to build the system for ourselves, and what does this look like? And if I think back to the early days, 2014, one of our biggest issues was we had mechanical issues with our donut machines. And essentially the first machine that we bought, it was used, and it broke down on us only a couple months into the business. And that was how we made donuts and how we made money. And it got to a point where we had called the company and we said, hey, how do we get this fixed? Like, what's going on?
It was a bought off the shelf machine. You hadn't designed the machine yourself?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So it was one of two machines that's really prominently available in the U.S. And we had called customer support and we said, hey, what do we do with this machine? It has this problem. And they said, well, send it in and we're going to get it back to you within about 3 weeks. And we took a look at it and we said, well, how, we're paying rent. We had everything invested into this business. And how do we keep paying rent for the next month? How do I don't think we had employees at this time. If we did, it was only 1 or 2. And it was, how do we get a machine so that we can keep our business running? And we were able to limp by until we were able to get a second machine, and the second machine showed up. It was a different manufacturer, and it actually showed up broken. And we were counting down the days till this machine showed up. Finally shows up, and the heater didn't work. And something happened in transit. It got damaged. And long story short, we had actually worked with the manufacturer by Skype. So this definitely dates, the timing back to the Skype days of 2014, 2015. Worked with the manufacturer over Skype to repair the machine. We got it operational, and they were so impressed that we were able to service the machine and get it working that they extended the offer for us to become a distributor of the equipment. And we said no.
You made some tweaks to the equipment to improve it, and
well, at that time we did a simple repair with the manufacturer by Skype. And because we were able to do that, that's where they had said, we have a big opportunity in the U.S. and we're looking for.
They were not a U.S. manufacturer?
No, they weren't. They were based overseas, and it was a European-based company. So we could see that the quality of the equipment was there, but they needed representation in the U.S. But our focus was on our donut kiosks and eventually the donut trailer. So it was all about how we're just going to keep our business running.
Yeah.
But then as we started to see the larger picture of the growth of the company, where it was headed, that's where we started to say, okay, now this was a couple years later. Now we can look at distribution and eventually becoming the exclusive distributor of this equipment.
Gotcha. So, and you have an exclusive right now in the U.S. on this.
We do, yeah.
What is proprietary about it? What does it do differently? What is it? Is that where the little donuts come from?
Yeah, that's where all the little donuts come from. So it's the machine itself is very compact. It's very small. It's much smaller than the other alternative donut machines that are on the market. So being a mobile-based business, that's really important. It allows for quick setup, quick breakdown, much quicker and quicker setup and breakdown than you would have with these larger machines.
And actually manufacturing the donuts is fast?
Yeah, you can produce right up to about 1,100 donuts an hour.
Wow.
So it's very quick. But being able to, have that in-house, have support technicians in-house, stock parts, being able to supply that, and because we're the distributors, being able to supply our franchisees with 2 donut machines so that they have not only a primary machine but a backup machine is really important. So
really important. You learned that in the early stages that shuts the business down completely when that happens. So.
Yeah, and if you need support, we have in-house team standing by. It's not a call center. We have an in-house number that you call, and you reach one of 5 people in our operations team that you've met at training and that you've already previously interacted with, and they're going to help walk you through, how to resolve whatever the issue might be at that time.
99% of the time it can be resolved over the phone.
Yeah, most times it can be. If something can't be, it's sent into to our Florida office. It's repaired typically within 12 hours, and then it's back on the road the next day.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the important thing, which you learn very quickly, is you've got to be up and running. Those things happen and the business shuts down completely, revenues stop.
Yeah, that can be very detrimental to any business. So.
We talked a little bit about this, but in terms of the various trucks finding their venues in the regions where their territory is Are they running marketing campaigns? Are you guys giving them direction on that? Is it mostly calling local venues? How do they get trained to know how to reach out to a venue and sell their services, etc., for someone who's a novice just entering?
Yeah, so a franchisee is going to go through a 5-day training program with us. We're, of course, going to focus on donut making, recipes, brand standards, but 2 days of that training are specifically devoted to sales and marketing training. So at the core of DonutNV, when we go back to the basics, DonutNV is a sales and marketing company. And if you can't sell, if you never book an event, you never have to worry about selling a single donut in your life or making a donut.
It's all done through events.
Yeah, you need events to drive your business. So, you're going to have a wide variety of options of how you run your business. You might focus exclusively on private events, things like catering and prepaid opportunities. You might focus exclusively on public events and opportunities like food truck festivals, or you might do a combination of the two, and that's typically...
Which isn't prepaid. You turn up at the festival, you pay to be in the festival, and then you expect to sell enough product in that scenario.
Yeah, that would be a public event, whereas a private event would be showing up to your house for a birthday party, for example.
And it's a fixed pay to be
it's
there.
It's prepaid by the event host.
Gotcha.
So typically a franchisee is doing a combination of those two.
Yep.
And then they're going to be the local face for their business in their local territory. And that's really why we chose the franchise, was because we wanted local representation throughout the U.S. We had considered the corporate model and the corporate store model, but we wanted that local face and that local business representation. And I think we've done a really good job of growing to that point.
Like, it's a random question, but like McDonald's, do you have a meter up there showing, like, clicking over how many burgers they've sold, showing how many donuts have gone out of the trucks?
So we don't have it centralized, but we have the capability to do that eventually.
Because you know what each truck is selling ultimately,
yeah.
So you could come up with eventually when you hit the 500 million donut number.
So from a growth standpoint, our motto has always been having more supply than demand, and having the supply before we need the demand. And we've always been focused on that. And the way we've been able to really accomplish that from just 2 short years ago, it was really just Amanda and I. It was a two-person team, and as we started to board the rocket ship of what is now DonutNV and the growth trajectory we've been on, it was really asking questions along the way to those that have paved the way before us of what can we expect, what should we plan for, and what have other companies done in terms of their growth.
Did a lot of that advice come from organizations like Franchise Fastlane that had taken you on and were ultimately part of trying to get you to get to that hyper growth phase?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was it's big. It was important for us to understand what path we were on and use any and all guidance that was available to us. So that was Fastlane has been a great partner with us, being able to really guide that. And now we sit at about 16 corporate employees on the DonutNV side, but in addition to DonutNV, we also have in-house manufacturing as well too. So we're vertically integrated on the manufacturing of our trailers, and that team sits at 20 plus people at any given time as well too. So
that wasn't a first choice when you got into the donut business. That was the necessity, I'm presuming, because the growth was getting ahead of you and you wanted to control the manufacturing of trucks, etc., so they could keep up with the growth. Would you say that's probably a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, we stepped into manufacturing overnight. It was very unintentional. We never thought we were going to be manufacturing trailers, but based on the growth of the system, based on the quality standards that we expect of ourselves and of the product that we're going to put out, it was imperative that we got involved in that process and that we were able to not only put out a good product, a great product from the start, but then being able to support that product ongoing as well too. So the design of our trailers is very intentional. We take things we take things from our perspective of, if we have to replace something, what's the quickest and not necessarily the cheapest, but what's the most affordable way to do it, and to get back in business should you have anything happen. And we've been very intentional about the pieces, every little piece that goes into that trailer, to make sure that should your water pump burn out, how do you get a new one? And
all backup systems, etc., whenever possible.
How do you keep running? And we've gotten it down to pretty much a science. I mean, that's what our operations team does, and they're available 7 days a week for calls like that to our franchise partners, is making sure that they understand, how to run their trailer, but also if they have any issues with that trailer, how they continue operating, should something happen.
Yeah. Hyper growth of any kind is scary. For me, it's a lot about, like you said, anticipating, getting ahead of the curve and seeing what's coming and preparing for it, so that you don't see this growth and all of a sudden you can't support it. Like working with an organization like yours is very beneficial for us to position ourselves correctly, because we have such a close relationship. We have weekly conversations, monthly conversations about your expectation, your growth. We're involved in providing, the products that are going into each of these trucks when they go out, so we can make some assumptions and anticipations. But for us to be able to support companies like yours that go through this growth, it's about building support teams around you, knowing how quickly you're intending on growing, so that we make sure that we keep ahead of that curve. For every so many locations that you have, we want to have a customer service person that's going to actually service those people properly. And we learned that the hard way, I would say, going through companies like Metro when they were bought by T-Mobile and they went to 12,000 locations, and their expectations were we managed a lot of different programs for them. We even the system, which is still built this way, allows for any third-party vendor that sells a product that's not even our product to use a system for order distribution to the franchisees, etc. And we found ourselves, running so many different programs for the system that weren't really our core product. So we were learning a lot of new marketing material, etc., not just the branded stuff. But that part of the education really educated me in terms of being close enough to the client that you can really get involved, sit down at the beginning of the year. What are your growth goals? If that doesn't matter how big the corporation is, they all have budgets and growth goals, the number of stores they wanted to open. I know that when Metro got bought by T-Mobile, they went into a mode of opening 600 locations a quarter, and we were responsible for kitting out each of the locations. So as long as you knew that, you can start preparing and getting the product in place, etc. But if there's not a good rapport and communication between the client and ourselves, it becomes difficult to guess those things. And not all clients are as knowledgeable as you in terms of even knowing what their growth is going to look like. There's a little bit of this going on, and the ones that do are not necessarily not great communicators. They're so focused on what they're doing. They're not necessarily. I love the fact that you sit down with our team. You have weekly meetings with us. We kind of know where your head is, what your thought processes are, what your pain points are. It's the creation of a real partnership.
Yeah,
we intend to be with you for a long time.
No, I appreciate it. And we look forward to the same. And I was reading a great article the other day, and it talked about success with vendors and how companies grow, and it's really focused on that open communication channel. And if the vendor and the company are having those open lines of communication, that's really where that success comes in and allows that growth, as opposed to everyone just kind of guessing what's going on and hoping that things come together.
Communication, I think.
I think the big thing is that people want to do business with people, and understanding the needs of the business goes beyond just business relationship or business transactions, about your relationship, your personal relationships, and how that from a business side transacts and what that looks like. And in our case, Brooken has been working with us really since the beginning, and I don't even know if I can tell you if he has a voicemail set up on his phone, because every time I call, he answers. So he's been a great partner for us. The team that supports him has been wonderful as well too. And of course, you're always going to have growing pains and challenges like anything. But it really comes down to how you handle them, how you tackle that. And I would say Brandit, and specifically Brooken, the attack mode has always been, we'll hit it head on. What can we do? Franchisees not happy. What can we do to resolve this as soon as possible, and how are we going to make this better for the future? So that's been a great mutual relationship for us, through this growth phase.
Perfect. I think that's a massive part of his role, is smooth things out, understand what you need, and make those problems go away. And that's a big part of our philosophy, is providing a comprehensive account manager support team around them, so that you have that immediate relationship, immediate contact, and he knows more about you than I care to even mention.
When we take a look back on the development process and really offboarding the sales process, the development process to a third-party company, we had interviewed multiple companies. We looked at Franchise Fastlane. We looked at probably at least 3 or 4 others that were in the industry. And it was really just a thought at that time, because we knew it was a significant financial commitment. And when we looked at the other offerings that were out there, most of them took equity within the brand, which wasn't a good fit for what we were looking for. And we were looking for a team that could really understand what DonutNV was all about and what the direction was. And it was more than just sales. It was making sure that we were building a sustainable system that was going to have a strong foundation, that was going to build on what we already had at that point. It was 14 franchisees that we had, that I had personally sold. And then it was about building kind of the next generation of DonutNV franchisee. And the focus was really on multi-territory and growing the system, getting more trailers on the road and growing overall brand equity. So when we went through that process, it was about a 4 or 5 month process, actually. And
of interviewing them and finding out whether they were the right fit.
Going back and forth. But actually, even before that, if I rewind a little bit, a year before that, we had done that initial dive. I think it was in early 21, late 2020, early 21. That's when we even started to hear about FSOs, franchise sales organizations, and didn't even know what that was at the time. Started to dive into it, do those interviews, and then understand what the associated costs were, which were not cheap. So it was going to be the next stage of investment that we were going to make. And to this day, DonutNV is still owned 100% by Amanda and I. It's a true partnership, and that's very unique, especially for the size and scale of what the company is. So
that you haven't been diluted or haven't had to bring in investors, etc.
Absolutely, It's always been about making smart decisions, really saving towards what our goals are, and then tackling them as we had the opportunity. So we did this interview process in late 2020, early 21. Wasn't the right time. Started to revisit the conversation. But
they kept an eye on you. You kept an eye on them after that.
No. We had an initial conversation. Had maybe 2 or 3 conversations about it. Understood the fee structure. Understood what that would look like. About a year or so went by, and I was driving one day. I was headed home, and it just popped in my head. I said, I think we should revisit this whole outsourcing the sales and the franchise sales organization Fastlane. I said, maybe I should really get on the phone with Carrie and revisit franchise Fastlane. And we reconnected a couple weeks later and really started to put the ball in motion. But they had other things that were working on their side in terms of expansion at the time. Things like they were involved with a private equity investment at the time. And that kind of slowed down.
They ended up closing that deal, right?
Yeah. They have a great partner in that. And, during that time, what would normally be, I think, a shorter, maybe 2, if not 3 months, for us, it turned into 4. I think it was 4 or 5 months at the time. So it kind of felt like forever because we were so excited to get to the next stage of growth.
And then all of a sudden, there was a little bit of a slowdown. But that's okay. We say, everything happens for a reason. Yeah,
right?
I'm sure they were going through a huge process themselves if they were working so
they had a lot going on their end, and for us it actually worked out perfectly. We had a lot of personal things going on. We were actually we just had a lot of really good things going on personally, and for us it ended up being perfect timing. We rolled out or formally signed on, I think, May of 22, and then really started hitting the ground with our first confirmation day in person in August of 22.
How many franchise locations do you think you had in May by the time you actually got onboarded?
In May,
because you were 14 at the beginning of the process, you were probably still onboarding a few, but
so we had probably about 10 or 11 at the time where we signed on with Fastlane. We had closed out a couple of deals that we had in the works, and then Fastlane took over as of August, September at that point.
Yeah. And so, like you said at the beginning, obviously a big financial commitment. You get what you pay for. You pay for the best, and so you got a great organization. I'm sure you weighed into that decision. What does it cost you in time and energy for you to go to an event, for you to try and find that person yourself, etc., without the infrastructure that they had? So, any regrets? Any looking back from
No, not at all. It's been a great ride. We intend to keep it up, keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
And just consistently hearing how familiar are we. Actually just wrapped a confirmation day yesterday, and when we were talking to our candidates on the call, they were so excited to join the brand because they're so familiar with seeing DonutNV trucks throughout their area, and that's probably the most rewarding feeling. In addition to hearing about franchisee success, is seeing the mobile trailers,
recognition of brand,
brand recognition, and people associating DonutNV with other major players in the mobile food space and in the franchise space as a whole. So it's
also about how smart you are at picking territories and rolling out. We just were in conversations with one franchise group last week that had locations, one location in California, one in Nevada, one in Florida, and they're not seeing each other's trucks. But I'm presuming like you're working your way across the state more strategically so that they are seeing, etc. You know, how do you pick your next location, your next venue?
Yeah, so the franchise candidate really brings their area of interest to us, or to their franchise consultant in many cases. If they're not working with a consultant, brings it directly to our director with Fastlane, and then we put together maps around the area that they want to be. So as long as the area, which our areas are based on zip code, and we base them on populations of 100,000 people. So a single territory will be 100,000 pop, and that will be where they operate. Now you have the ability to operate.
If it's more rural, you might get more zip codes to get you up to 100,000.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always going to be based on the population. One of the big questions we always get is, what is the perfect territory for DonutNV? Is it more rural? Is it more suburban, city? What does it look like? And the truth is, at the end of the day, is that everyone loves donuts. You can eat donuts at any time of day, morning, afternoon, evening, late night. And
don't tell me about it. I know.
You can make the system and the product will sell itself. You can make your business successful really in any territory, no matter how rural it is or how populated it is. It's just what you're focusing on. Going back to the events, what events are you booking? What's your strategy? Our mission is for each franchise partner to really be the mayor of their local town, and as long as they're the mayor and they're known as the go-to person for catering and for private event services and for a really sweet experience, they're going to hit it out of the park.
Hey, so Alex, as we wrap this up now, I just wanted to say, obviously, from the entire group at Brandit, we value your partnership hugely. We're looking forward to the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I want to see you go up to 1,000 locations and to wherever your dreams take you. I just wanted to say thank you for an awesome partnership.
Of course. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're excited to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.